Back in 2014, Scott Cawthon, an indie games developer, had just released his most recent game called Chipper & Sons Lumber Company. He had received many hate comments of his characters looking lifeless and like animatronics. Now, most game developers would take this to heart and quit, but not Scott Cawthon. He took all of these complaints of his characters looking uncanny and dialed it to 11, and that was the birth of Five Nights at Freddy's. Hey there, welcome back to the channel, and if you've been here before, welcome back. My name is Striker, and today we'll be taking a big look back to 2014 at the original Five Nights at Freddy's. Now, this will be the first in a series of 8 videos where I'll be covering each game of the Scott era, aka FNAF 1 through Ultimate Custom Night, before making our very own timeline at the very end. So, make sure to like and subscribe, and let's get straight into it, shall we? Chapter 1. These days, FNAF is widely regarded as the face behind what we call mascot horror. These kind of games are Bendy the Machine, Poppy's Playtime, and, well, as much as it's unfortunate, the Garden of Banban. Back before FNAF, horror games were so much different. We had big games like Slenderman, The Last of Us, and Silent Hill, to name most of the bigger ones around the time. Now, you might notice these are all more exploration-based games with something hunting you. However, in FNAF you do have something hunting you skill, but that ability to escape that you have in most other games like Slenderman is taken away, given a fear of being completely helpless. But shameless plug, I did go in depth about this during another video which you can find linked below, and you'll see the thumbnail on screen. But moving on, there were not many, if any, horror games at all that were like FNAF. It was a breath of fresh air in the scene, which is why it became so popular, being further boosted into infamy by YouTubers playing it like our favourite guy Markiplier here. Chapter 2. Now, the OG FNAF game still holds up pretty well today. Maybe not in the graphics department, but because that horrible curving texture whenever you look around, it's present in sister location as well. In those two games, it's just the most apparent that I've ever seen it, and it's really puts me off whenever I'm playing those two games specifically. But its simplicity is what makes it stand out from the rest, along with its creepy visuals and ambience. Now, in this segment, we're going to look more into the gameplay aspects of the game, such as what happens in each night, who's coming for you, what difficulty, and so forth. So let's get started. Starting with night 1, it's relatively slow, and you have 3 possible animatronics being Bonnie, Chica, and a very rare Golden Freddy appearance. And prior 2 animatronics will just wander around and not be too necessarily unaggressive other than Bonnie. Now, during night 2, Bonnie and Chica's aggressiveness will increase a lot, as well as Foxy have a chance to activate it. However, his difficulty is so low it shouldn't be much of a problem at all, yet again with a very rare Golden Freddy appearance. In night 3, things get more stressful, as now every single animatronic is able to attack, with Freddy now joining the Frau. Alongside this, all the animatronics have all become slightly more aggressive. In night 4, we yet again get another increase in the animatronics' aggression, as well as Golden Freddy becoming more common to occur when flipping the camera down. Night 5 does the same thing, just making it even more stressful to play, as the animatronics will now be completely on your ass for pretty much the entire night. And when you complete night 5, you get your very first star in the game, signifying one of 3 endings, and night 5 is just the main one. Now, in the game, there are 2 extra nights with even a higher difficulty. Night 6, which is just the highest difficulty you can get without custom night. Basically, it's just an additional harder night 5, and then night 7, which is our custom night. If you beat all the animatronics on 420 mode, you will get the 3rd and final star. I'm not entirely sure where the 2nd star comes into the game, but that is all I know, and let's move on. Now, as I said in the beginning, we are doing this to form a timeline at the end of it. Now, in the first FNAF game, there is not much lore revealed, as Scott wasn't expecting the game to blow up so much, and this was meant to be his last hurrah as a game maker. So he only left little breadcrumbs of a story for us to follow, which is very good for us. It makes this much easier to look for any lore or Easter eggs in the game. Now I'm going to be talking about all the different special Easter eggs and the lore that is implied from them. Now in this video we were going to be covering two different sources of lore, being our good old pal the phone guy and Easter eggs you can find in the environment, before capping it all off with and putting our events into a timeline. So starting with our only voice in the game and friendly character, the phone guy. We get very small lore drops, and I'll pop quotes up on the screen, but he tells us about the Bite of 87, which for anyone who has played FNAF knows is during FNAF 2, and that is why the animatronics can't roam in the day during FNAF 1. And secondly, we see Phone Guy's demise. He clearly knows the company is shady, asking us to check the suits whilst all the animatronics are banging on Phone Guy's office door, before he is presumably killed by Golden Freddy. But that's really the extent of Phone Guy's lore reveals in the game. You do have to remember though that this was supposed to be Scott's final game ever, so he left story but not much, as there was never supposed to be a FNAF 2. Next up we're going to be looking at different environmental Easter eggs, which is mostly the different newspapers scattered around the walls of the pizzeria. Most of these have reference to an incident we know as the missing children's incident, but here are the main field notes. Kids vanish, local pizzeria. 2 local children reportedly lured into a back room during the late hours of June 26 at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. This header defines 2 of the children. Of course, the full newspaper is longer, and I have the full thing up on screen right now. Another newspaper ups this number to 5 children linked missing to the pizzeria, which reads, 5 children now reported missing, suspect convicted. 5 children are now linked to the incident at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, where a man dressed as a cartoon mascot lured them into a back room. Of course, aside from newspapers dotted around the environment, you may know the different posters. Now in the left hallway where Bonnie and Foxy attack from, we have this Freddy poster on the wall in the back corner that can occasionally become a Golden Freddy poster. Of course, we have the secret character Golden Freddy, who can appear from night 4 onwards and will rarely pop up if you pull your camera down. Now back then at the time, Golden Freddy was kind of just a completely random thing. There was no lore or explanation because we do nothing about Fredbears or anything like that. Next is the strange crying child posters that can pop up in the upper right hallway. Occasionally in parts and service, all of the heads and the endoskeletons may occasionally start staring into the camera. One of the most well-known secrets is in the custom night menu. When you type in the 1987 Easter eggs, you get a Golden Freddy jump scare which crashes your game, which we now know is a reference to the Bite of 87, but it's unclear as to why Golden Freddy reacts, as Fredbear, which is where Golden Freddy comes from, is based in the 1983 or the Bite of 83 incident. Sorry if this ending was a bit rushed, but there was a lot to go through. Now let's build a timeline. So many people have tried to build a timeline over the years, and I'm definitely not going to be the first and won't be the last, guarantee it. Now, I mentioned this is going to be a series, so as I make more of these retrospectives on the series, I'll build up this timeline before making a final video to cap it all off and show the final timeline. So let's get straight into it. By the way, credit to Bren Snoff, another YouTuber, as I got the idea to add the timeline aspect and using his different models that he created for the timeline. So first of all, we need to establish a year to place all of our stuff on the timeline, and thanks to an early theory using a payslip, they correlated it to a year that would match the minimum wage rate, which is absolutely insane. FNAF fans are just on another level. So it was decided that we would be in 1993 is where we're going to be placing the events of FNAF 1. We can most likely place Phone Guy's calls where he dies around a week prior to our actual gameplay, so Phone Guy I believe is working around the 26th to the 31st of October and dies in the later days of his week, most likely on the 31st, aka his night 5. I'm only guessing it is this date because of the paper slip that we receive at the end of FNAF 1's night 7, the custom night. You get a pay slip that is noticed to the 13th of November. The year is scribbled out, but we do know it's 1983 based on the minimum wage that you were paid. Now that we have our main framework of the game's events, we can fill in the rest ourselves. So on this timeline we're going to be planting the missing children's incident in the late 1980s. Although up to now we kind of have a year, but for the sake of this timeline we do not. Obviously the Bite of 87 is in 1987, then after the main events of the game we have Freddy shutting down in 1993, shortly after our shift. Now this timeline is so nice, it's simple, it's so beautiful. Not like what we have now. Oh my god, does it get complicated later. Well, if you want to see more, which I would love to do as I enjoyed making this so much, now make sure to hop on down and click the like and subscribe button, and whilst you're at it, go check out my last horror of Five Nights at Freddy's video, which I'm sure you'll enjoy if you liked this one. And if you want more gameplay stuff, I've got some of that on the way too. So until next time everyone, goodbye.